All right, welcome to another episode of Community Television Africa, where we talk about the arts, music, and all forms of creativity as they pertain to Black people around the world, the African diaspora, but from a very Afrocentric point of view, whatever that means. Afrocentric point of view actually means humanity. But anyway, I'm here again with Zulu. Yeah, with I said Zulu. It's actually Angelo Zulu. And Angelo, who's in still in Joburg. I remember this time. He's a graphic artist. He's an artist. He's a skateboarder. He's a sports, especially with things like skateboarding, extreme enthusiast. So today we're going to talk a little bit about digital art. We're about to find out what angle he's going to take. Then after that, we're going to talk about the idea that digital art or graphic art is on the same level as any art form because all arts are actually using physical manifestations or using sound to to convey the invisible in a certain way for it to be art. And a lot of the times this is actually just basically spirituality. It's creative spirituality. So because we have a lot of times we have this idea that if you say you're an artist, you have to be someone who paints using paint, using oil paint, or you have to draw, you have to sculpt using physical. But the digital is on the same grounds. And what determines whether you're an artist or not is not the medium you use, but it's the interpretation. And some people will say that the interpretation is is open to anyone, but I would say no. An artist will present something to you, and within it, they're going to bring you into a certain sphere of interpretation where at least even if you bring your own interpretation, it's still guided by the interpretation the artist brings. And it's a mystery how the artist brings the interpretation or the concept. Sometimes it's deliberate, sometimes it's because they're a medium. But we're going to get into that part later. So we'll start off, Angelo. What angle did you want to look at with the digital visual arts and graphic arts? Okay.
Okay, no, thank you for having me once again. And
Welcome.
to me, I wanted to go with the approach of digital art being a necessity in our evolution as humanity. And it carries a lot of, I would say, pressure on us to know the difference between the traditional media and the digital media that we are progressing to. So
Yeah.
I want to focus more on the impact that it has on the industry, as in how it helps us to essentially just make our lives way better in interpreting art and making it more integrative and interactive.
Yeah, yeah. So before we get into what you're saying, it sounds like you're saying that digital and things that are created by computers and things like that, and imagery that's created by the new technology we have, is actually just an evolution, a new tool that's powerful. That's just one of the things we can use. When you go back to the cavemen were putting paints that they found from dust on the thing using their fingers. That's a form of art that's just as valid as any form of art. But then later on, you start to find new things. You start to find pastels. You start to find oils. You start to find other things. Then at some point, people created music. Then music started going electronic and things like that. But all of these things are part of the evolution of the human being. So once we get these new forms of technology, we're broadening the scope of our spirituality and practicality because a lot of these things have practical and social uses also. So is that are you hinting towards something like that? Yeah, yeah,
Yes, definitely. And for me, I would say that digital art has been a eye opener because I've been stuck with traditional media, mostly drawing is what I enjoyed and excelled in. And when I first saw the digital works, like when drawing on a drawing pad, I was just so amazed and I thought, there's no way that I could be able to do this. But then when I got into the more computer graphics, started playing around with illustrations, I then figured that no, actually, this is a lot more advanced and a lot more again eye-opening to me as a artist. And I think
Okay.
it's also, as you say, a very spiritual thing because you are now using this new tool to describe something that is within you. And I think it just adds a layer to, defining a spirituality in you.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I don't know if you've gotten to this level yet, but when you're doing digital, you'll start to use it with mixed media, with other things, sat with music, acoustic, painting. So it just adds more to the palette of the artist. Would you agree? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I mean, right now we are in the midst of AI, and I think that even goes a step further than giving us the power. So I think that just the digital arts that we have right now gives us a lot more power to
Yeah.
um, establish our ideas and
Yeah,
our reality.
it's basically a linguistic medium. It's now part of a new tool because language is a tool to express ideas. So it's just a new. So it's actually part of what I would call the human or the artist language. Now let's go. So before, because you mentioned, let's go back to what you were saying. So you want to say the importance of these tools and being able to define what they are, what digital is, and it's what its purpose and or what it's useful for. So can you give us a breakdown of that, please? Yeah.
Okay, so to my understanding, digital arts, it encompasses computer graphics, animation, 3D modeling, graphic design. It encompasses so many different fields, but it sort of stands alone as it's sort of distinct in a way because digital art is a expression of
Yeah.
a art more than, let's say, with graphic design, where you would find the tools are the same, but it is used more functionally.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the digital art, it it is more of a expression, and that is where you'd see artists who take a inspiration from the traditional media and they would put it in the digital world.
Yeah.
So I would say that there is layers to it, but most importantly, it encompasses many different fields.
Yeah, and an example because I read what you wrote earlier. You sent to me. So you have graphic. What is it? Generated uh, imagery, which comes from computer. Now, a digital artist may use graphic imagery that use the computer, but that graphic imagery could be used to tell somebody cross the street, or it could be used for practical purpose to say don't go here. But if you're an artist, what you're doing is you're taking that medium, graphic generated image. But now it's a new interpretation because you're not using that image to just say, do this practically. Once again, you're using it to express something within you or something spiritual. But this is the same thing with photography. Some people may take a picture. Oh, this is a picture of the person you have to say hello to when you come. That's not art. But when someone takes a picture in a she bean and someone's drinking and you know the context and you see something happening, you say, oh, now this is art because this person is not just capturing, it's not just showing you the people drinking and everything. They're telling you something deeper. Whereas if they say, oh, we want to know who the people were drinking are so we can arrest them. If you took the pictures, that's not art, but it's the same. It's actually the same image, but it's not art
Yeah,
because of the context, which goes back to what I was saying earlier. So with what you call it graphic art or digital art,
mhm.
we're using things within the medium of computer generated and using technology and stuff. But where it branches off from is that those things are just tools. They can be used for those things are tools. They can either be used for functional things or they can be used for art or spirituality. But it's up to the artist in the way that the mode and the context that they bring it in, to whether or not it's art. Is that am I correct with what I'm saying here? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely true. Especially on the parts that these are tools, you know, you can use them either functionally or you can use it very expressive.
Yeah.
But I would just like to add on that in the different fields that digital art encompasses, I think for me, what really stands out is the new ones such as 3D modeling, or you have AR or VR modeling or engineering. And I think those are sort of a breakthrough because they now involve the more interactive visual experience, which I think we haven't had that, and I think it would clearly make us more into the arts or expressing this spiritual side because we are now getting to, you know, physically interact with the space, you
Yeah, well,
know.
what it's doing actually is that where a poem or a painting will take you into a landscape that you're looking at, this thing will actually create that landscape. So now it's almost like another form of a physical reality itself. But that's just the first level. Then within that model, it's no longer a model, within that architecture of a world, which is not the art itself, it creates the context of you in that world, and then whatever the artist is trying to convey. I think that's what you're saying. So these types of things actually create virtual realities in which the art itself is presented within that, because you're talking about landscapes and things like that. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So
Yeah,
because
definitely,
it's
definitely.
interactive. Yeah, it's interactive. Yeah. It would be the same thing
Yeah,
as someone creating let's say someone creates a set using physical. They create a city, a real city, and they implant you in there, and that's part of the conceptual art. So what this stuff is that it's actually creating a framework or something, which is powerful because now it becomes art within experience and within interaction, not just with things like paintings and stuff, which you just sort of look at it and then through your imagination you might be able to interact with it. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And also, again, I would like to add on the bridge between the traditional works and also the new digital. So we as Africans have been making art for as long as time could tell.
Yeah.
And we have established this different mediums such as beadwork, such as maybe we can go into a bit of paintings or engravings and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Mostly, for me, what I've seen interesting is that we at this point that we are right now, we are slowly evolving. Not that we are letting go of the past, but we finding a way to integrate this new digital world with our old one. So, such as, let's say, the Ndebele art or the Zulu art, you'd
Yeah.
see the different patterns and they look so vibrant and alive and sort of telling a story. Last time I said it was sort of an encrypted message. But if we were to mix it with the new digital art, it would sort of make sense, and you know it would be heightened in
Oh yeah,
if
because
that's
yeah, because what happens is that, like you said, if you go back to the what is it? I think the first humans, not the first humans, but our ancestors were all humans now because there were humans before, were people from southern tip of South Africa, the San. Those are the oldest remaining DNA. Those people were in caves and they used by the seashore, and they had trance and things like that. They had to hunt, then they were fishing and things like that. But that's no longer our reality. Although we still have the same struggle. We have to hunt, we have to go out and get money, but it's different. And we're dealing in a world in which there's genocides, there's airplanes, there's TV, there's phones. So for us, our art form, the mediums that we're using can't only be exclusively. We don't even have to go as far back as that. Let's go as far back as before before there were computers or before there were oil paints. The tools that you use were based on the reality that you had, but we have a much more complex reality now because of technology. So we have to use that technology itself as a way of explaining of how we feel. Like, you know, what's that thing they have in South Africa? What they call it, Afro punk or whatever. Then there's Afrofuturism in art. You've heard of Afrofuturism in art, right?
Oh
Where you
yes, yes.
see somebody who's supposed to be a
Uh,
Sangoma wearing big sunglasses that look like it's postmodern visionary. You say this isn't Africa. Of course it's Africa.
yeah,
Now in Africa, you have a language like Africana, which is actually a European-based language. I'm not dissing what I'm saying. In Kenya and places, you have Arabic-based languages. Nigeria, a lot of the languages are Arabic. So now we're not exactly the same as our ancestors. We are the same of them in one way, but we're now variations of our ancestors. So our art has to change. Even South African music is influenced heavily by music from the 60s in the US, boogie woogie and everything. But now we call it South African music, the jazz and everything. So from what I hear from what you're saying then is that these mediums are and these modes of experience, now that we're on computer and we have so much digital, we're actually becoming more digital. So that's part of our reality as well. Although I'm going on a tangent, I would argue that when back in the sand days, that when people start going deep, when they were going into hallucination, they start to tap into the digital. But that's a story for another day. Go ahead. You understand what I'm talking about? Like that's why when people take mushrooms or acid, I've done that before. You actually start to realize, wait a minute, I'm digital. It's just that this altered reality that I am in now, I'm not like that when I'm sober or whatever. And I've had dreams in which I start seeing pixels and pixelation and stuff. So I realized that even this technology that we have is actually part of the human spirit. It's just that this is the part of history in which it's manifesting itself. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. What do you think? Yeah. Yeah.
yes. I like how you are bringing this together, where you have this thing that feels like it's not spiritual or conscious at all,
Yeah.
but you see it within yourself that
Yeah.
no, this is sort of like pixelated, maybe, it's not as sharp as, you would see maybe visually, but
Yeah.
it does have a glimpse of a digital connection.
And also
So
very geometric too. Yeah. Yeah.
very geometric, yes. So I think that it would be very crucial for us to explore digital arts as already it is part of our, corporate world, the business world. They prefer more digital work because it is easy to scale, it is easy to adjust and change.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies around the world have adjusted to this, and it has helped them so much that they probably earn as much as I could think. But what I'm trying to bring it to is that this digital art that we some see as new, it might not be as fairly new as it is, but it's sort of like a part of us which we have to live with and integrate with.
Yeah, and then we're being reconnected with because, like I said, if you look at the art that comes out of Africa or even out of Europe or cavemen, a lot of it is very geometric. In fact, the first art was very geometric, and people usually get into it when it's in trance. But you start to see that same type of pixelation. And then let's go back to remember this guy's groundbreaking album, Kanye West, 808 Heartbreak. He uses a lot of electronic, digital type of sound, and even his last album, Bully. And when you listen to it, you get into an emotional feeling that the robot sounds more human than the human. Do you get my point? With some of the songs,
Yeah,
when you listen to Kanye do that digital stuff, some of it sounds sadder and more poignant, but he also mixes it with emotional elements of regular experience. So going back to what you say that this digital stuff, it's been around since the beginning of history because I don't believe any form of energy that we see now that's manifesting itself was there at the beginning of time. And we don't even know if there were times in which we had these types of technologies before, because we've seen pyramids and things like that, but we had some sort of holocaust that wiped it out, but we're getting back towards it again. What are your thoughts? Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, now you're bringing in a whole new layer where
Yeah, there's
we
always
do not
layers to this shit, man. Yeah.
we do not even know if this digital technologies or digital art has been around
Yeah.
because even the way that we interact with it today, it seems as if it has been a part of us, as if it's actually just something that we have always lived with. So probably it has been around that long, just not in the the mode or maybe in the
Yeah.
structure that is today.
Hmm.
But in terms of us as Africans, I think that our geometry and our type of art, especially right now, I am focusing more into Zulu patterns. And I
Hmm.
see that these are way too geometric for us to not have understood this sort of other world, which is, digital.
Yeah.
So I think that we do have a correlation, and I think we should capitalize of it, obviously in a good way that would benefit
Yeah.
us as the traditional people. And yeah, I think even
Yeah.
just trying to look back and see the actual correlations, I think that would boost us
Yeah. And
very
what you're
well.
saying is that because digital, just like before digital, we had like regular illustrations. They had practical uses for business, but then they also had sacred. So what you're saying then is that it's not only the businesses that use, and when the businesses use these digital imagery and choose not to use other forms of imagery, it's because it also connects to the person who's watching it in whatever their marketing goal is. So that shows that it has some sort of human potential. So what you're saying then is that let's explore this digital technology and this digital imagery beyond just marketing and capitalism. I'm not saying capitalism is bad, but let's also look at how it can be applied into other parts, into the pure arts, into the pure spirituality, just like any other medium. Because I'm telling you, people think, oh, photography is an art form. Uh,
Yeah.
photography, when it first came out, people were like, oh, this is not art. It's just taking an image to identify people. So, but it's when the artists see the technology and realize how to use it. Because once again, all of these things, think about it. Digital is based on binary. Binary is a human concept within the human soul. And if you didn't have humans as being binary, we wouldn't have digital art and technology today. So digital art and technology is actually a manifestation of the human being because by nature we have the ability to think in terms of one and zero. Like you talk about computer programming in one
Yeah.
and zero. And Yoruba they call it Ifa. Ifa system is based on one and zero, but in hundreds of millions of combinations to use divination. Same thing with the um, Soto people in South Africa. They use divination by using cowrie shells. They use the one and zero, and that's where digital starts off with that sort of pixelated idea. So it's just a matter of not pigeonholing it into one thing. Oh, this can be good for advertising or for marketing. No, it can be used for so many things. Some of them good, some of them bad. What are your thoughts? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and I like what you said there at the end that it can be used for good and bad. And one of, I think, the discouragement that people have with digital arts is that they do not see the soul in it. It's just zeros and ones. But
Oh,
I mean, when you look deeper into just our construction or how we were constructed, you'd see that no, we were also made through some sort of binary system.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
I think for me, I think it just all ties in together. And right now, it's a great time for us to realize that
Okay.
we need to adapt, first of all, and that it would be much easier if we can look at it from a human perspective. And I think the digital art, just it alone, the expressiveness, just makes it possible for us to adapt
Yeah.
to that very quickly and very safely and good.
Yeah. I don't know what the name of it yet. I'm still playing, but basically, like you were saying, digital art. is sacred. It's part of the sacred. It's actually part of the sacred. A lot of people wouldn't think that, but it is part of the sacred. So what we'll do is that we're gonna keep exploring this idea. Maybe next month we'll come back to this and start to unravel it and get into more specific details, not just looking at, because today we've covered the general idea, but now we want to start going specific and giving examples and really examine this thing and unpack it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So we'll have to think about what angle we want to take with this, continue with this, because this is very exciting. Now, I know that you're an artist, but you do a lot of stuff that's involved with computers and stuff. So what tell us your history with digital art. Is it part of your eh, is it part of what you do, part of what you doing in school, or what you do as an art and using technology and using imagery that's computer generated? Mhm.
Oh yes, definitely. It has been quite a impact on my artistic journey, and I plan to be at least well established in that field. And it started when I was entering my, after high school years, and I got introduced to the Adobe softwares, Notely, Illustrator, and I just found this interest of creating logos, creating actual illustrations, which I've never done before, and as I've said last time, I took illustrations, I took patterns from the ones that I did manually, and I integrated it and made it into digital works. So
Yeah,
for me, that's where I have been, but I've also explored fields of animation and, sort of like game development,
yeah,
and I've also dabbled into Photoshop and what we call InDesign. So I've been in the graphic design field and making more of the functional art. But right now, what I'm trying to achieve is the digital art and, being more expressive in my
okay, yeah,
digital
yeah.
art.
I see you as being you have a challenge, but this is a good challenge because I think like me, you're probably left and right brain. So you have a technical theoretical part, then you have a part that's an artist. So what your thing now is to unify all of this. And this is you look at guys like I'm not exaggerating when I compare you to them, guys like Da Vinci and Co. They were well educated, but you probably have the same basis of the way your brain works. It's just that these guys had hours and hours because Da Vinci's dad was rich. So all he had to do all day was to learn everything unified during the Renaissance. So what you're pointing towards is another Renaissance in which all of this stuff, form, function, aesthetics, spirituality, and everything becomes one. And it's a big task. So what I see what you're doing is you're merging a lot of things. And you spoke earlier about models with experience and interactiveness. And you also do skateboarding and stuff. I don't know if you sometimes see the skateboarding process as a process in which there's actions going on, which could be interactive, which itself could be in a very abstract way of seeing things. Also part of art because life is experience. So sort of like what Lady Gaga said, life is art. So you might even see skateboarding and things like that. Even what you're doing there, it's not necessarily art; it's a sport, but under a certain interpretation and a certain worldview, you can show us that it does have elements. Not that it's art, but it does have elements of art and spirituality within it. What do you think? Yeah.
Oh yes, no, with skateboarding, it has been interesting because with the different videos that I've seen, the footages that I've seen a lot of artists that they make digital artworks out of. And I've been blessed to be part of a collaboration with my friend, brother. His
Mm-hmm.
name is uh, made by LSKM on Instagram.
Okay.
And he he has worked with me to create works that express my skateboarding in a more artistic manner and a
Yeah.
more
Mm-hmm.
abstract manner. And I think that it just makes sense when doing it digitally because you can be able to get the flow dynamics and, actually just, feel the energetic energy of my skating. So
Wow.
I really do think that it does well with skateboarding.
Yeah. On our next show, we'll go deeper into that and focusing on that, what you were saying with the flow dynamics and the experience and how it's with your skateboarding. And then we'll go back to what you were saying, like you've done a lot of things like stuff for graphic design and everything that has a functional marketing point of view. But then you also want to start exploring the spiritual and the arts. So then when we look at it, this goes to the point where we say art is not everything. What we're trying to do, but spirituality is everything. Art is one part of it. Marketing is one part of it. Skateboarding and having experience. So what you're doing is a creative whole which unifies it. So rather than use the word art or marketing, whatever, all we can say is it's a very complex, interactive form of spirituality, which doesn't have to have any label. You understand? You can say, "Oh, this is artistic," which is true, but you're not saying, "Oh, this is art," because a lot of times we as artists we say, "Oh, we're artists and you guys are business," but what you're saying is that no, this is artistic. This is functional. If you look at Renaissance
Yeah.
art, a lot of it, especially the architecture with the buildings, it's functional. But when you enter a cathedral or whatever, it's not only a function. There's a spiritual act, and I would argue that everything is spiritual because I think there's at least two forms of spirituality. There's physical
Mm.
spirit. Physical things are actually spiritual. Consciousness and experience is actually spiritual too. Everything is spiritual because if it wasn't spiritual, then how could the body interact with the mind if it's not the same medium? But it's just that it's different manifestations of the same. You get what I'm trying to say? So what we'll
Get
look
you.
at. Yeah, I know we're getting deeper now. This is getting into the point where we had to sit down and start. I had to sit down and write it because these ideas are so complex and abstract that we can't just pin it down right now. Which is why we have to do future episode. So we'll move into that. Any last thoughts that you have before we head out? This is good. Once again, I never knew we were going to go down this road when we do these shows, man. Like remember I sent you notes, and I was looking at the notes. I said, "Fuck these notes, man. Let's talk." You understand? But the good thing
Yeah,
about notes. The good thing about notes is that you don't have to look at them while you're saying something because you've already looked at them and they put a seed in you, even if you don't remember the note. A note is just more like a little bit of a guide, sort of like at the beginning of a jazz song. Jazz musicians will come and they say, "Well, this is going to be you in the key of A, and we're going to use these chord progressions." Then they're not going to sit down and start studying the key of A. It's just giving them a quick prompt. It's like a prompt to just get going. So I've been enjoying the shows that I've been doing with you. We've done stuff on Buddhism. We did stuff on art, and I was wondering that we're doing on digital art. When I first heard it, I said it's going to be hard for me to reference this to culture and art. But then when we start talking, it starts coming out. So what are your last thoughts? Yeah.
my last thoughts is again, thank you for having me,
Oh yeah, no problem.
and I would love for us to continue with this because it touches on my personal journey, which I
Yeah.
would love to pursue digital art more and share it with the people, community,
I see you as
television.
one day also being a filmmaker. Not that's going to be your profession, but I mean, I see the potential of you being a very good filmmaker amongst other
Yes,
things.
yes.
Because you have, yeah, I see you being a filmmaker. Yeah,
The thing for me is that as much as I would love to specialize in computer graphics or
yeah.
digital art or any type of field that does
Mhm.
digital, but I just want to be multidisciplinary, even
Yeah.
with the traditional
But also
art.
remember though, filmmaking. If you were doing filmmaking, it might be you just fully digital. You get what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So for me, I would just love to say thank you to the viewers for watching, and I would love for them to come back and listen more to what we further have to discuss.
Yeah, I think because we have Buddhism coming up, but I think the next show that we do on the art, we'll start looking into your skateboarding, the experience, and some of the stuff you've done that's digital now. Does that sound good? Yeah, sounds like it's a good.
Very
Yeah.
good.
All right,
Totally.
all right, guys. You've been watching Community TV, Africa, amongst our many channels. I have to remember all the time. Got my wine here. It's been a very good show. So, Angela, what are you doing today in Joburg? I miss Joburg. I got to
Today,
come back.
well, I mean, it's already nighttime, but
Oh yeah, stay indoors.
I
Don't go to
do
Community
plan
TV.
on
Yeah,
I mean, I mostly stay indoors, but I do plan on working on the project that I've started, and which is the Zulu patterns but done digitally, and um, trying to have the impression of beadwork but digitally. So
You said
that's
beadwork,
what I'm
beadwork.
working on today.
Did you say beadwork?
Yes,
Oh
beadwork.
yeah, that sounds interesting. I can already envision what it would look like. So yeah, all these types of things that you're talking about, we're going to focus on that, so we can go deeper into the profile of you as an artist and as a graphic designer and everything. All right, so thank you guys for watching our show. We'd like to ask you to like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, even if you don't subscribe, always watch us when we're on, because we have a message that we want to get out of there. Thank you. I'm Angelo, and we're out. Okay.
Thank you.